So in addition to lists and dictionary, there are two other data types I want to talk about that are sets of things, or lists of things, or groups of things. One is called a tuple. And a tuple is just like a list, except you can't change anything in the tuple. I think if you had wanted to have a list that had the months in it, but you want to ensure that it's never going to be changed somewhere by mistake in your code, you would make it a tuple. That way that you would be sure that there'd be no changes made. So we make a list here on line 5. You can see I use the square brackets. Here I make a tuple. And the only difference is that I use parentheses rather than square brackets. And I can print the list. Sure enough, I can print the list. But if we go to append to the tuple, we get an execution error because you can't append to a tuple. We can add names to the list. We just can't append to the tuple. There we go. Got the right line of code. So now we run it. We get the two names. And sure enough, we can add to the list, but not to the tuple. And notice it's square brackets and parentheses again. The other thing is you can't modify a tuple, not just can you append to it. So if we go down here, if you look on line 32, if we try to change the Betty to cat, it won't work either. It blows up again. So if we take that out of there, but the index value still exists, so we can still, let's see, we have Tupples again. Betty can still print. So we can still access the items in the tuple just as if they were in a list using the index value. Similarly, we can use a tuple in a for loop and still go through the tuple just as we would through a list. Now, sets are unordered and they can't be changed, but you can add and delete items from the sets. So they're sort of like lists, sort of like tuples, but you can add and delete to them. But they're unordered, so there's no index value, which makes things a little odd again. So again, we look at this one. We make a set. Notice that the set uses curly braces, which means if you can't really make an empty set just by doing set name equals curly brace, empty curly braces, because that will make you a dictionary, not a set. So you do the print, you set names, and we try and add pebbles to the set, and we add pebbles to the set because you can add items to the set. But look, where did pebbles end up? Normally, it would have ended up at the end, right after Betty. But it's not after Betty, is it? It's way here, and it's the second item in the list. Because it's unordered, you cannot say where new items are going to show up. Officially, you can't guarantee that it's always going to be the same order either, officially. But it depends on what kind of system you're running on. All right. So again, we've added another name. Notice now this one is Bam Bam, and it shows up as the first item. So you're not even sure where it's going to show up. It's not always going to be the second item. It just shows up wherever. Notice it is not after Pebbles either. It's just not like a linked list where it's always linked at the end. You don't know where it's going to show up. Now, because it's unordered, there's no index value. So you can't even access items by knowing, even if you know where they were in the last print statement, they might not be there the next time. This is where I was saying officially it's not going to be there. So that you cannot access them with an index value. In the past, you couldn't even use them in a for loop, but with Python 3, you can still access a set using a for loop. But again, you don't know what the order of the items is going to be. It may be the same each time. It may not be the same each time. So those are tuples and sets, and they work with dictionaries and lists, but really they just work with lists. Lists, tuples, and sets really go together.